So.
Oh, I cannot wait till we hear him say Joel Klatt when Gus and Joel are back for the big noon kick. It's 60 days. Oh, it's not 60 days away. Was it 67 days away? Is that
60
right?
from week 0.
60 from week 0. Klatt is with us now on the Alexander Chenard Trial Attorneys. That's a spectacular hat, by the way. I do love that hat.
America.
That's right. America. How you been, man? You good?
I'm good. Those of you don't know the behind the scenes. Brownie has been
harassing.
He's been texting me, and I have not been avoiding you guys.
Yeah,
it's just the schedule has just been what it's been. So, listen, your showtime tends to fall when I have tea times.
Yeah,
let's just be honest.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You know, so there's only a couple of days a week that this can work.
Oh, I bet I can look up Klatt's handicap. We're looking up handicaps on the show today, Klatt.
Yeah, a little controversy earlier. I bet Klatt is a 2.1.
Do you first of all, do you have a USGA handicap before I do this?
I do.
Okay. You bet he's a what?
2.1.
I think Klatt struggles with the 5 to 8 foot putt, but I'm going to put him at 2.8.
So let me ask you this while he's pulling this.
No, Klatt's a plus. You're a plus 0.6. Klatt has been golfing that ball.
Yeah. How often do you play?
Handicap, Klatt. Look at you.
Do you play every day?
No. Probably I would say 2-3 times a week in the off season, somewhere around there.
Okay, plus 6. Plus 0.6 is getting the ball around.
But are you like DeChambeau?
The plus 0.6 is a bit frustrating. I was sitting at about plus 1.3.
Yeah, your low's plus 1. Your plus 1.7 is your low.
Yeah, and I threw in a 78.
I see that
my last round.
Yep.
That's just.
You're.
Now, are you playing the same tracks over and over now? I mean, these.
Yeah, I mean, I play my club quite a bit, which obviously lowers it. I would say it's artificially, a shot low, because of that, because I play my place quite a bit, and inevitably, you play back and you shoot 171 or 72 or 69, and it just plummets and stays down there forever.
Yeah, it does feel like good scores drop it way more than high scores raise it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That is the frustrating part of the handicap.
Yeah, but do you feel like Bryson DeChambeau? I didn't see the quote, but Brown told me about it when he played just with regular people on a regular course, and he was like, "How do you guys play on this stuff all the time? When we're on the tour, we got perfect lies and perfect greens, and you guys play out here."
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, you play on great courses.
We used to say that when I played minor league baseball. You go to those minor league parks, single A parks, and everything. You get some wicked hops playing in the field, and we're all like, these big leaguers have it incredible, right? They have flat batters boxes. The pitchers throw strikes. The bounces are perfect. I'm like, how can you not be a great big leaguer?
So if I said Kirk Cignetti in Indiana will have more wins over the next 3 years than Sharon Moore in Michigan, would I be insane?
Does last year count?
I thought about counting last year, but I don't think that's fair because that's going to give
right. So I just need to know the scale. So are we in the middle of the 3 years, or are we starting from now?
Let's start from now because I think Fernando Mendoza is going to go number 1 overall. So I think you're going to get better quarterback play. I think you get better quarterback play from Mendoza.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that was just thrown out
it's been this way all summer. It's been this way all summer.
I think Underwood's going to be great. I've never even seen him play. I've just seen his look, and based on the money that he paid him. So I think he's going to be great. But from what I hear, Indiana's not going anywhere. Cignetti's got real deal stuff going on there.
If you say we're in the middle of the 3 years, I think that they've got a chance. If we're starting from now, I would bet towards Michigan. Remember now, these imbalances within league schedules are real. You guys see that in the SEC, I mean, you look at what Florida and Oklahoma have to deal with, and it's just Florida is going to be a really good team that's going to go 8-4. And they're going to be a really good team that could beat most teams in the country. And, so are they going to be an 8-4 team? Meanwhile, Missouri has one of the softer SEC schedules. They could win 10 games. I don't know if Missouri's better than Florida. And I just bring up that example to kind of like, I guess, put it at home for you guys. Indiana's schedule last year was
Joke.
they caught Michigan on the transition year. They didn't play Ohio State. They didn't play Oregon. They didn't play, or excuse me, they didn't play Oregon or Penn State. So the only tough game that they had was Ohio State, and they played awful. So I just I don't know about the sustainability. Now, I am a big fan of Kurt Signetti. I don't think that they're going anywhere, but I don't know if they're going to be 10-11 win good, whereas I know what Michigan can do. They are recruiting at a better level than they ever had, even under Jim Harbaugh. And so I think that they will remain one of the elite teams in the league. So from here forward, Michigan over the next 3 years.
I mean,
if we're in the middle of the 3 years, I think it's close.
Speaking of Michigan, and I'm sorry to interrupt you there. You guys, I mean, y'all have got one of the most compelling games week one, obviously. I mean, there were two fascinating games week one to me in Texas, Ohio State, and Clemson, LSU. But a super compelling early season game, because I don't know if we know which direction either of these teams will go, is this Oklahoma-Michigan game in Norman.
Yeah.
Bryce Underwood, if he is the starter, having to make a road start in that place, and the Oklahoma schedule is absolutely unforgiving. Like, they just cannot absorb an early season loss like that. That is a fascinating game.
No, I mean, Oklahoma's probably going to be a lot better. I really like John Mateer a lot. I was fortunate enough. Here's the thing, and I think you guys will back me up on this. I don't think anybody watched John Mateer last year.
I saw him play the Apple Cup. That's the only time I saw him. But Lance is big on this guy. He saw him some.
Yeah, I watched way too much Washington State just because of a gambling aspect last year.
Good.
I loved watching the guy play, though, man. I mean, he was
really good, man.
He's just so gritty and gutty, and he can do everything.
Yeah, I watched him a couple of times because I own stock in CW.
Jim's the incredible answer, by the way. That's my favorite right there. So I got to watch every snap he played. Not weekly, and I'm not trying to say this, but because I was prepping for the Holiday Bowl, and so I watched all the Washington State film when they were getting ready to play Syracuse. And I came away more impressed with him, their system, Arbuckle going with him as the OC, and yet, guys, I would be shocked if Oklahoma is better than 8-4. Ooh. That schedule is brutal. And, the hard part for them is that Michigan's not going to be a cakewalk. That Michigan team, there's no team in the country other than Ohio State that won the national championship that had a better last month of the season than Michigan. They go into the shoe and beat Ohio State as a 20-point dog. Then with Milroe playing and all of their guys opting out, they took their basically second string defense in there and just absolutely shut down Alabama and beat Alabama. That's an incredible last month. It's also a last month that coincides with Bryce Underwood choosing them. So the momentum that they created late last year, we'll see if that continues with all the saga that we've going on with Sharon and his self-imposed suspension, everything. But that's not going to be an easy game for OU. I think that's an incredibly interesting game. I think it's really important for both teams. In fact, I believe I have it on kind of my I've been talking about it this offseason on the show, these pressure point games. And that's a pressure point game certainly for OU, because if you don't beat Michigan with a true freshman quarterback, and where Michigan's program is right now, you look at the rest of that schedule and it's like, oh my gosh, are we going to win 6? But if you do beat Michigan, then you can say, okay, well, maybe we can manage to get to that 9-win mark. Maybe we are good enough. So that is a huge point in the season, even though it's early, for Venables and that OU program, because I think it tells you everything about the direction that their season's going to go.
I would say that as an SEC flag waiver, I usually talk about the depth of the SEC, and I feel like this is the year in the Big Ten that the middle takes another step forward to get better this year in the Big Ten. I feel like Nebraska,
Well,
USC, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Washington, Minnesota, Iowa. They're going to be pretty good teams.
I don't mean to interrupt, but like I just can't with Nebraska. Like you remember a couple of years ago, I think I said this to you guys. Like, hey, I'm done with Texas until they do something, and then they did.
Right.
To their credit, and they've been to back-to-back playoffs and semifinals, and that's where I'm at with Nebraska. Like, I just can't. I like Matt a lot, but like I'm just so tired of every offseason being like, this could be it, guys. Like this is the like hey, so not to jump in.
But a bowl game
the
last
premise
year,
of
right? It
your
was a step
question
forward, a bowl game.
Is I think accurate. I think it's very accurate. Illinois is going to be a team that I think has a really good chance to go to the playoff. Like a really good chance to go to the playoff in a 12-team format. I don't think Indiana is going anywhere. I think this Gronowski kid from South Dakota State that's transferring to Iowa is a huge deal no one talks about. I think it's equal to Mateer going to OU. Gronowski has played 50-plus games. He's been in national championship games at that level, and we've seen that pays off. You know, the experience factor pays off. So I think Iowa is going to be right there. We know Oregon's going to be good. I think Michigan bounces back. We know Ohio State's going to be good. And I think the team that might win the Big Ten is Penn State. So like you're absolutely accurate about kind of the depth growing. And by the way, I didn't even mention USC, which, well, I mean, you look at all the close games last year, and they could certainly turn it around. The depth in the SEC last year was staggering. It was fantastic. They suffered from what the Big Ten was in previous years, which was they didn't have anybody like really elite. Maybe you could say Georgia and Texas, but as we saw in the playoff, when you get pushed around by Notre Dame, I don't know if you can technically say you're elite. And Texas was doing everything they could just to hang in there against Ohio State. The SEC is going to be a great league. It's going to be a deep league. I think the Big Ten is going to be a great league. It's going to be a deep league. Here's the thing that I find fascinating, though, is in particular early, you're going to have a lot of these games that I think that the SEC for the first time in maybe 2 decades is under a lot of pressure to win because of how last year went. Guys, the SEC had a really, really bad end of the season last year. They lost a lot of important games that were against teams and regions that they normally dominate. And so now you're going to have these massive, massive games like Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma, LSU, and Clemson, among others. And they're going to need some wins in those games because you look at what happened last year. Again, Notre Dame beat Georgia. Texas got beat by Ohio State. Michigan beat Alabama. Illinois beat South Carolina. You go on and on. They did not perform like they have over the course of the last 2 decades. So in this era where conference supremacy seems to be so important in the playoff era, I think those games early in the season are vital. For the conference to kind of maintain that edge or air of supremacy. I mean, when's the last time they had to put out some sort of like analytic propaganda packet to prop themselves up? That was borderline. I love Greg, but his people are walking him, off the plank. That was, I don't want to say pathetic, but that was awful. Like that whole spring meeting propaganda packet. Are you kidding me? For a game for a league that plays 5 FCS opponents in November and plays the least amount of league games of anybody in the Power 4, plays the least amount of Power 4 opponents in the non-conference, plays the most FCS opponents in November. And you're going to put out that and try to sell it off as like we're hands down the most. I'm like, come on.
I always love your fine print, the FCS games in November, because my goodness, if you look at September FCS games or G5 games from the Big Ten in those September games, when the SEC is playing the Michigans and the Clemsons, you get a lot of MAC games from the Big Ten.
So, okay, schools that play FCS opponents and 10 Power 4 opponents. How many SEC schools do that?
I would say
zero.
Zero
Do you know
must be
how
the
many
answer.
Big Ten teams do that? 4 Michigan, UCLA, USC, and Wisconsin. Schools that play an FCS opponent. 15 of 16 for the SEC, 14 of 18 for the Big Ten. Conference games, Big Ten, 81, SEC, 64. Total Power 4 games, Big Ten, 93, SEC, 82. That's the least amount of any Power 4 conference. Group of 5 games, most of any conference, SEC, 31. So,
Okay, can I just say this? I didn't want to go this direction.
I'm just saying, you always say those November games, those same type of
that
games
doesn't
are
make a difference.
popping
You don't
up
think
in
it makes a
September.
difference when you play that? You don't think it makes a difference that the schedule is created to separate out the difficult stretches of the season?
Yes, but if we all did it the way the Big Ten does it, where we played all these conference
Then the
games
sport
at
would
the
be
end.
better.
No, your TV packages would suck early on. We'd have so many bad windows.
That's a different discussion, though. The discussion of how we should schedule the non-conference and who should be in control of scheduling the non-conference is a totally different discussion, because I don't think athletic directors and individual programs should be in charge of that. I'd like to take that over in a centralized body and schedule within pods based on where you finished the previous year, so that we can drive some parity and we would drive much more meaningful and valuable games, not only for the networks, but for fans, which is really the point of the
all
sport.
for that.
Okay.
That'd be fantastic.
I agree. The analytics unneeded for the SEC. Let me say this, though. What bothers me is Brett Bielema saying they got to play 9. They got to play 9. This is all you got to look at. Bielema, a long time at Wisconsin, Arkansas, and now Illinois. Very comparable programs, all three. He averaged 8.5 wins at Wisconsin and Illinois. Dude averaged 5.5 wins at Arkansas.
Yeah.
That should shut him up. I'm going to ask you my important question now. I think.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. I mean, is that not legitimate? Like, hey, Brett Bielema doesn't need to be the guy that is driving this for the Big Ten, because it's an easy shutdown. You couldn't get it done in the SEC.
This entire conversation. Well, and by the way, that is, and you're normally really good about this, but that is such the SEC honk, like Arkansas's equivalent to Wisconsin. In what universe?
Okay, so Wisconsin's a much better program, is what you're saying.
Much better? How about by the orders of magnitude better?
I will say, and when we discussed this, I brought this up. Wisconsin did get to feast on the Big Ten West, while Arkansas had to play
100%.
in the SEC
100%.
West.
Okay,
Yes.
you will give me the Arkansas and Illinois. Is that more in line?
Okay. Now, I didn't come on here to have this.
I don't want to back.
debate.
I've got
But
a
I
more
will
important
say,
question.
this conversation that we're having is the reason that we have to, as a sport, move away from a selection-based playoff model into an access-based playoff model. Because if it's continued to go down this stupid 5-11 model where we're going to have 11 at-large teams, this is all it becomes, a propaganda narrative conversation, and everyone just screaming at each other about which is more difficult and trying to compare, apples to oranges. And it becomes like a religious debate or a political debate where no one's ever actually convinced. You just scream in your own echo chamber.
100%.
So, like this idea that we're going to go to a 5-11, 16-team model with the committee, who has done untold damage to the sport, not their fault, more the criteria's fault, and we're going to give them the opportunity to select 11 at-large teams. That's preposterous and terrible for the sport.
Okay, so for a long time, SEC Big Ten football better, but I loved watching Pac-12 after dark. The Big 12 has become that conference for me. For the foreseeable future, a fascinating question year in, year out is going to be, who wins the Big 12? I mean, last year, Oklahoma State 0-9, Arizona State, ultimately 11 wins and took Texas to the brink. But if I asked you going into this season, who wins the Big 12? Do you feel good about an answer?
No. I feel better about the CW stock.
I mean, it really is it's almost impossible to say, I feel great this one team.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Your question is absolutely 100% accurate. I have no idea about that conference because, and this is not meant as a knock, there's just no separator. There's no great team. And so every single team is going to be involved. And I was at their spring meetings and talked to all their coaches, and they all said the same thing. It's like, listen, we're going to be in 6 one-score games, which is the exact opposite of what generally happens for good teams in any other conference. Because as we know, the margin in college football between a great team and an average team is much greater than at any other level, and in particular the NFL level. So that league doesn't have that differentiator. We thought Oklahoma State was going to, with Ollie Gordon back, was going to be the cream of the crop. They go winless. We thought Arizona State was going to be last in that conference. They win the conference. It's literally a coin flip. Now, do I think UCF is going to win the conference? No, I don't this year. If I had to sit there and handicap it, I would first look at quarterbacks and more specifically experienced quarterbacks. So I look at BYU and I look at Iowa State. I really like Rocco Becht, although they've got to replace those 2 really solid wide receivers, Higgins and Knoll, who left for the draft. I look at Kansas State with Sunshine and like, could they be back? Yeah, they could be back. Baylor finished really well late last season. What does Colorado do? I mean, who knows? Is Kansas going to be good, even though they fell off in the middle of the year last year? It's literally a coin flip, and for that reason, it becomes a really exciting league, at least to consume, like you said, in kind of that after dark mode.
Just so I can, when I have a discussion with people who are in favor of the 5-11, the only thing
How could you be in favor of the 5-11?
Yeah, I'm not.
You cannot be a college football fan. I'm just telling all those people that are listening. You cannot be a fan of college football and looking out for the best of the sport and be in favor of 5-11.
Yeah. I like the 5-11.
It's impossible.
Lance likes it. Lance does.
How?
I just don't want to see, hey, look, let's put it in stone, 4-4-2-2, because I wonder if you have rat couple of years in the Big 12 and you've got 8-4 back-to-back years getting into the college football playoff. I just think if we go
the NFC South, you just get eliminated.
But if we go old school BCS,
we have 8 and 8 teams go to the NFL playoffs. As soon as we grow, this notion that they have to be the best 16 teams or 14 teams, I think has to go out the window. Let's talk about objectives.
But real quick, here's the way I want to.
We're going to blow off your break for a moment. Hold on.
Yeah.
So here's what we're
I
going to
just
do.
wanted
We're going to talk about objectives.
Okay, but here's the only reason I wanted to do. Okay, go ahead.
Hang on.
I do want you to. My question was, what happens to Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson if we go to these automatic qualifiers based on conferences? Why do we keep playing those games? That's my only concern.
I think it's the exact opposite. I think it's the exact opposite, like we see with Nebraska and Tennessee and others. If we're just going to a selection committee, what has been proven out during the selection committee era, whether it was 4-team era or the 1 year of the 12-team era, what we're seeing is that your strength of non-conference schedule is never rewarded. The only thing rewarded by that committee is whether it's a win or a loss. And therefore, if it just comes down to record, there's no incentivized reason why you would play a tough non-conference game. Just zero. So those would 100% go by the wayside if we were in an at-large era and a selection-based era. And I do, Lance, go ahead. I wanted you to finish.
Well, I was just going to say, look, I believe that AI will end civilization one day. But with that said, the 4-11.
We're just covering everything.
Let's just go BCS rankings. Like, we don't need the human element. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we went the old school numbers, let them select who those 11 at-large are.
Okay, so you think that the committee's criteria is flawed?
Yes, absolutely.
I totally agree with you. I completely agree with you.
Because there are.
I think that any time that, regardless of criteria, I think any time that we have just a selection process, it can or will be flawed. Let's not be revisionist in our history and think that the BCS system spit out the exact matchup that we wanted to see. I think that the BCS had it wrong in the number of teams that participated for the championship. Their model and how they ranked teams was much more accurate than what we have now, to your point. So I'm going to agree with you. Now, I just think that we should go a step further. As we grow this thing, access versus selection is what the conversation really boils down to. Do we need an access-based model or do we need a selection-based model? I argue vehemently that we need an access-based model because I boil it down to objectives. What do I think that the college football playoff and its growth and any changes in the model, what should it do? Okay, number one, we need to keep more fan bases engaged longer in this sport. Okay, if it's going to grow, then that should be an objective. That's number one. Number two, an objective is that we should be trying to increase the number of valuable or meaningful games in college football writ large. That should be an objective number two. Objective number three is, to your point, we should be removing the power of this 13-person committee and take the sport out of the boardroom and put it more on the field. However, we need to do that. So that's objective number three. And then the fourth objective, which I think is a really vital one, is that we need to create a path, a meaningful path, where the other conferences outside of the SEC and the Big Ten can maintain their relevancy. Okay, and the way that happens is with an access-based model. In fact, if you measure those objectives and you measure the two models, 5 and 11 versus an access-based 4-4-2-2 or 2.5, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, in every single criteria, what's the best way that you increase more fan bases engagement longer in the season? You create a defined path for that program. Therefore, if you look at what happened last year, if we had a 4-4-2-2-1 model with 3 at large, you would have somewhere close to 35, 40, 44 teams in college football that would have been within a game of a potential play-in weekend model, which you could only have if you have an access-based model and you have actual spots that you're playing for versus hypothetical spots that are handed out in an invitational matter from a committee. So that's a way to keep more fan bases engaged, is a defined path to the playoff. If you're talking about meaningful games, I would contend that access-based model crushes the 5 and 11 model, because the 5 and 11 model, if the power of the sport is in the boardroom, then what we're going to have is that we're going to have more Nebraska and Tennessee's getting rid of their non-conference games because all that matters is win-loss. Now, the way non-conference schedules also has to change, because we need this in a centralized body and take it out of the power of the athletic director and the head coach to create their own schedule. But what it also does is increases the number of meaningful games. One, because you have more teams within a game of potential play-in weekend, and you have play-in weekend in and of itself, which creates a larger number of vital, meaningful, and valuable games in college football, which is better for the fan. Obviously minimizing the importance of the committee is important. I just talked about that. But then also the relevancy of conferences. If we go to a 5 and 11 model, there is a good chance that the Big 12 dies because of the parity that we just talked about. There's zero chance that they're going to get a second team, zero chance, which is why I find it odd. And I talked to Brett directly about this, why he would have come out and argued for that. It was almost like he was just frustrated with Tony Petitti and the Big 10. And so he just threw out a completely opposite model. But if you go to 5 and 11, there's zero chance that the Big 12 has long-term viability, because they're really only going to get one spot via their champion. No other access there, which means that you're going to have an entire league and an entire league's fan bases that are going to be unengaged for a large portion of the season, which is not good for them. I think that the same thing could happen in the ACC, although I do think that they're a little bit stronger at the top.
We know
long dissertation to tell you that I am vehemently more in favor of an access-based model, because it achieves all the objectives that are better for the fan and for the long-term viability of college football as a whole.
Okay, I have thought the committee has been a joke for years, but do you think there's a possibility to have a human element with no bias? And my example would be, if you've got people that truly love college football, you, Kirk Herbstreit, Nick Saban, you just put you three. Do you think you guys could sit down and say, these are the 16 best teams in college football, let's roll with this, without Saban going, you know what, I coached in the SEC, it's more difficult? Or, Joel Klatt, I played in the Big 12, I hate the SEC, let's do more Big 10.
Why you gotta say I hate the SEC?
I'm just throwing out random.
Klatt did not say that.
I get this moniker. I really don't hit.
I know you don't.
I know.
Okay. Let's pull that away.
Yeah, pull that
anyway,
away. I
do you
played in
think
Colorado.
we can have a human element with no bias if you got people that truly love college football, that have got money and they've got no dog in the fight?
I don't think that the bias would be worse, but the appearance of bias would be worse. That's all I hear is that, oh, you're a Big Ten guy. I'm like, no, the company I work for happens to have a contract with the Big Ten, so that's the only games that I get to call. If there is bias via proximity or familiarity, possibly. I do know those teams a lot better. I thought that the commentary during the playoffs was borderline last year. In particular, when Indiana played Notre Dame much tougher than Tennessee played Ohio State, and the rhetoric coming out of a network that had its own contract with the SEC was almost singularly pointed at Indiana, and that they didn't deserve to be there, but of course Tennessee deserved to be there. And even though Tennessee got their doors absolutely blown off by a bunker buster. Right? So I don't think that would be better. I think that, listen, in practice, do I think me and Kirk and Nick Saban would do a good job?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
and I think
would.
that we would have the best interest in the sport. But from the outside looking in, it would create more questions. I don't like the human element. I think that we need to get that out of college football, and I think that we need to define the path. I just picture in November. I picture what we had last year, guys, and we had no idea how great the 12-team playoff was going to be. Not only just in and of itself, which it was phenomenal, but also what it meant for November. You guys remember we would talk about that where you're like, man, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Look at how many, the expansion of the meaningful games. And now I think about, like, man, you tell me 40 teams could be within a game of play-in weekend? Oh, sign me up. I would be all for that. And in an era where we need to do everything that we can to find the value in every nook and cranny of college football, I think that we need to take a hard look at that. Our sport, the NFL, okay, give you a quick analogy. All right, we're like a sponge. The NFL is like a sponge. The NFL has their sponge in like an AI created vice, squeezing every ounce of moisture out of that sponge. Every ounce of the schedule, every ounce of the year, every ounce of the calendar. They create value in every single nook and cranny. And meanwhile, our sponge is just sitting there sopping wet, and everyone's like, what should we do with it? We don't even maximize the value of our own schedule, which is limited compared to the NFL, because we allow ADs and coaches to make their own non-conference schedules. That's wild. We continue to placate archaic bowl models, even though they are like Blockbuster and the new playoffs is like Netflix. And we're like, well, we got to take care of the bowl system. Why?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Why?
Yeah, exactly.
So, the more that we can look at all these nook and crannies and find value. How do you find value? More teams relevant. Major League Baseball has done that. The NFL has done that. We need to do that in college football. And you don't do that by having a beauty pageant. You don't do that by judging it like gymnastics. Like, I love the Summer Olympics. But you watch the gymnastics and they're all just like, oh, before Simone Biles even goes, they're like, well, this is going to be a great gold medal. Why? Did she do it better? I don't know what I'm watching because it's judged.
Yeah, he is Joel Klatt. 67 days from this day, he'll be in the horseshoe for Texas, Ohio State. What an opener that will be. I cannot wait.
I would tell you, your comments it's going to be hard for you to get Joel Klatt press box at Snapdragon Stadium. I mean, they're not going to have that plaque at Snapdragon Stadium. You keep talking about the
I'm
bowl
not saying
games.
that the bowls shouldn't exist. In fact, I think we should talk about the value in the bowl season. If we're going to continue to have bowls, first of all, quarterfinals should be on campus. The campus games in the playoffs were incredible.
Yes,
were
2
incredible.
rounds.
Oregon should have been playing at home.
Yep.
They earned that. They were the number 1 seed in the country. This is stupid. They had to play a neutral site. Now, you take all the bowl games that are not involved in the last 2 rounds of the playoffs, and you actually play like the 17th and 18th and 19th and 20th best teams in the country.
Why not?
In those bowl games.
Why not?
And guess what? You create value.
Yep.
So
Klatt, one quarterback.
I mean, it's June 24th. You guys have me all.
We're
know,
going way over.
An SEC
Mendoza number 1. How about this? 3-2 Texas, 5-0 Oklahoma, October 11th. But going into the season, if you can only have one quarter,
Wait. Time out.
Yeah,
3
he's
and
on this
2
one.
yeah.
Texas?
Texas is going to lose to Ohio State. Then they're going to lose in Gainesville to Florida. They're going to be 3-2. Oklahoma's 5-0.
Wow.
Yeah.
No. Doesn't Florida have to play
LSU,
someone right before
the
that?
LSU
They play
the way
LSU,
before.
then Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, LSU in Baton Rouge and then host Texas. Yeah.
It was in your propaganda you got from SEC
Yeah, if
meetings.
you would read your
Yes,
propaganda.
Florida has LSU.
Listen, I admitted before, I didn't need the propaganda to tell you Florida's schedule was absolutely brutal, right? That's going to be the best 8-4 team in the country.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll say this right now. In this model, if Florida goes 9-3, they should be in.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I
Same
agree.
with Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But Mateer,
But I'm an SEC hater.
hey, Mateer or Manning right now, who would you take?
Manning is Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay.
College Trevor Lawrence, not NFL Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that sounds like a Jacksonville fan.
No, I'm a Dolphins fan. You know me.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Have
I
you
knew it was
talked
one of those
to Sarkisian
irrelevant
in the
Southern
offseason?
teams.
I know.
Have you talked to Sark?
I'm sorry?
Yet? Have you talked to Sark?
I haven't yet. No, I think I might go down and check out a fall practice and prep for that
Just
opening game.
ask him first and goal on the 1 why we didn't see Arch.
Yeah.
He's not been asked that at all, so I'm sure he'll.
I really don't think he has, sadly.
How much Ohio State did you watch last year?
a lot.
Yeah, enough.
You guys showed them every week.
Okay, so do you realize that inside the 5-yard line, Penn State, Nebraska, Michigan, everybody tried to run at them interior in the middle with quarterbacks, running backs, and they stopped Oregon. They stopped them all. The only way to attack Ohio State inside the 5 was on the edge. Downs just made a great play.
That's a good response right there. He
I'm
doesn't have
just
to
saying
answer.
first and goal at
The
the
game
1.
because remember the game plan is not created in the moment. In the moment, you're just thinking like, oh, Arch for a touchdown. But what Sark had to do was for that entire week watch every single snap that Ohio State's defense had inside the 5, and he would have seen nobody ran between the tackles and scored on them. Nobody. Nebraska 4th and goal, fail. 3rd down and goal, Oregon, fail. That's what allowed Ohio State to go down and run the clock out inevitably on themselves. Penn State, 4th and goal, fail. In fact, had 4 snaps from inside the 5-yard line. All of those built themselves up where Sark would have known going into that game plan, his what would have been called low red game plan had to be on the edge. Had to. Downs just made an incredible play.
All right, he's Joel Klatt. 67 days from today, he will be doing that.
You've been
game.
trying to kick me off of it.
No,
You guys gotta get me
you
right.
could stay for a whole hour. I just know you got better things to do.
I
until then.
planned ahead, by the way.
Yeah.
No commercials.
No
I
commercials. We
planned
were
ahead.
ready for this. We were ready for this.
I thought you were going to be here for 32 minutes. I didn't know it was 41.
41,
so,
but it's
yeah.
40.
Oh, wow.
41 is too
So
short.
are we doing this again this fall?
Uh,
Did
I-
today end?
we-
Did
no,
today
we
end
will
our
be doing it
relationship?
this fall.
This is one of your segment in the fall is one of my favorites. That things we do. So absolutely, if you're willing to do it, are you willing to do it?
I'll see.
Okay, you get back. Have your people get back.
Okay.
How do you,
I would love to.
how do you
I would love
publicly
to.
embarrass us like that?
Yes, have your people get back.
I didn't pull. Oh, come on! I don't want to do that. You guys are the best. I really enjoy being on your show.
Yep, good talking to you. Hit them straight
You too.
tomorrow. We'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Have a good one.